we already got what we wanted.
Yes.
We knew Zack
Yes.
wasn't coming back. We knew
Yes.
he was done, but we rallied. Hashtag release the Snyder Cut, and we
Hmm.
got the Snyder Cut of Justice League, and we finally got
That
it.
was the win.
Hello, friends. I'm Anderson Marchak,
And I'm Ricardo Segura.
and we are the Panel Bros. Welcome to the panel.
Welcome to the panel. Yeah,
All right, here we are.
here we are.
It is as of this recording, it is nearing the end of 2023.
Oh, yeah.
And this year we've done quarterly discussions about the DC studios, movies and such, and
Hmm.
news. And we just had a recent release, and now we're going to be discussing DC Studios quarter 4 of 2023, and we're also going to be discussing the near future of what's to come.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, oh man, where do we get started here?
Man. Oh, man. Well, you got the latest release currently in theaters right now. You got
Right,
Aquaman 2. I have not seen it yet. I am doing
right.
everything in my power to go see it as soon as possible, but everyone knows the holidays get relatively busy, with the family and the kids and whatnot. So I'm trying really hard. I'm going to try to go as soon as possible to go see this, just so I can have a much better discussion on the topic, because that's the closer. Like,
It is. It
that's it.
is. And I did have a chance to see it, and
Hmm.
Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, for being proper
Yeah.
here. And I will say this as a non-spoiler type thoughts. It's just more of this new DCEU that they tried to
Mhm.
do after Zack
Yeah.
left. Basically after Zack left, where most of the movies were in a certain tone and
Mhm.
lighthearted, funny, goofy, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Just more so that, and for me, it just it wasn't for me. It
Mhm.
wasn't for me. I'm glad I got to see another DC movie, but at the same token, just not for me. Just
Yeah.
just wasn't
And
for me.
and it's it's a sad state. Now I haven't seen it. I remember when Aquaman 1 had come out. You had seen it, and then we saw it together with some friends. And I remember the atmosphere for Aquaman. I remember being kind of blown away because I didn't expect the reaction to Aquaman um to be to be that high. Like, it was a very good response. That movie had a lot of legs. Again, it's one of the highest grossing movies of the DCEU, making well over $1 billion. And I remember being like, wait a minute, like, the Aquaman movie. Now, I love Aquaman, you know what I mean, but I didn't think the general audience was going to latch onto that movie the way that they did, and they really did. Whether it was Jason Momoa's star power, and what was even more interesting is that movie came out after the whole Justice League scenario. So there was a big bad taste in people's mouth, and people still went to go see Aquaman. So to go from Aquaman 1 to be as successful as it was. And I remember the trailers, because I can only go based off of the trailer for the sequel because I haven't seen it. So I'm going to compare it to the trailers of the first movie. And the first movie had like these epic trailers. Where was there like subtle comedy mixed in? Of course, because it's James Wan, and James Wan does a very well balanced tone when it comes to making his movies, when he has creative control in that sense. And I remember the first trailers for Aquaman 1 were very epic. Like, they just had this epic feel to them, with some fun, comedy here and there. But watching the trailers for the second movie, I felt like you mentioned the word goofy. Like, it seems like the goofy meter just went up. Like, they
Right.
and we've talked about this, since Zack's exit, the DCEU, or what was left of it, they decided to try to go as I guess I don't want to say the word fun, because I think movies like Batman v Superman are fun and Man of Steel are fun, so it's all up to interpretation. But it seems like Warner Brothers was going for what they interpreted to be more fun and somewhat goofy and comical and things like that. And so when I watched the trailers for Aquaman 2, I was a little hesitant because, and it's not that I don't love comedy, I love comedy, but I loved what they did with Aquaman. I loved how Jason portrayed Aquaman in Zack Snyder's Justice League, specifically Zack Snyder's Justice League, and then Aquaman 1. So when I saw the trailer for 2, I noticed just how much that vibe had changed. Huge buddy cop feel vibe from the trailers between him and his brother Orm. And it's just one of those things that I was a little uncertain, what the tone was going for, because you and many other people know there's been a lot of changes behind the scenes with the DC and the DCEU becoming the DCU and going under James Gunn. And what movies is he giving notes to, what does he want to see? And it's just one of those things that when I saw the trailer, I was just like, ooh, I'm not really sure. I want to go see it regardless, because again, one, this is the end of the DCEU as we know it. More than likely, Jason Momoa, I don't have any intel, but just based off the writing on the wall, I would assume that Jason is probably done playing Aquaman. I know he's mentioned that, it's up to the fans and whatnot, but it's he's probably going to be doing something a little different. We'll see. So you did get to see it. And I always take your opinion to heart. And I have a feeling that we'll probably agree, because again, that was just the tone that I got from the trailer alone. And it's somewhat of a sad state, man. It's somewhat of a sad state, again, to see where Aquaman 1 is to where Aquaman 2 is. A lot of people haven't really seen it. We can talk about box office a little bit in comparison to the first movie, but it's just one of those things where I kind of sit back and jokingly say maybe the DCEU were the friends we made along the way. You know what I mean? Just to
Right.
kind of make up for it, because it just seems that, with Aquaman 2, you went from $1 billion box office film, and now we have Aquaman 2 that a lot of people just seem very uncertain about.
Yeah, well, to your point, as far as critical and financial success, um, that tone sometimes it paid off.
Mhm.
The shift, the Warner Brothers, they wanted to do that lighter tone. Sometimes it didn't. Where it paid off was movies like Shazam
Yeah.
and Aquaman, lighter in tone. I mean, Aquaman had a couple dark spots. So did Shazam.
Oh,
Yeah, it showed its excuse me. So did Shazam. But
yes.
critically and financially, they both did very well.
Yeah.
They both did
Yeah.
very well. And then we have had a couple pandemic era movies that didn't do
Mhm.
so well financially. The Suicide Squad, Wonder Woman 84. Um, the Suicide Squad did well critically, but Wonder Woman 84 did not.
Yeah.
Um, we had Birds of Prey that did well critically, but not financially.
Yeah.
So, that sweet spot of the critical plus financial success, only two movies I can name off the top of my head, which would be Shazam, the first Shazam and the first Aquaman movie,
Yeah.
since Justice League. Um, and then, you know, not to be repetitive, but then we had this entire year 2023, the first year that DC um, studios under Warner Brothers released 4 movies in 1 year,
Oh, yeah.
and there was a lot of delays, which led to that. But for all intents and purposes, we had Shazam, Fury of the Gods, we had The Flash, which had been delayed many times, we had Blue Beetle, and now we have Aquaman 2. Out of all 4, Blue Beetle is the only one that got critical acclaim.
Yeah.
And then all 4 altogether were not financially successful at all
No,
whatsoever.
no. And
Um,
and it's unfortunate because, they're not always gonna be winners. Of the ones you mentioned, I think I probably enjoyed Blue Beetle the most.
right.
It just didn't have a really good box office return, and it's always an interesting conversation because, you have the studio that is chasing this critical acclaim, and understandably so. I get it. But, some of these movies, again, like Shazam, and Blue Beetle, the first Shazam, I should say, while they did very well critically, and Birds of Prey did very well critically, box office wise, they just didn't land. And it's this weird dynamic shift where you had movies previously in the DCEU that critically were panned. Audience score was always higher, but critically they were panned. But these things were making a significant box office.
Right.
And Warner Brothers was like, oh man, like, okay, the box office is decent, but we really want that critical acclaim. So let's try to make some shifts in tone. And if anybody could do it, I do believe the DCU could do it, because I've always the DCEU, I should say, because one thing I've always appreciated about the DCEU films is I like that they always felt different. Like a David Ayer Suicide Squad felt like David Ayer, and even though we know there was a lot of behind the scenes shenanigans, his tone and his aesthetic was there. Well, not the tone, but his aesthetic and feel. And Zack Snyder's films feel like Zack Snyder. Patty Jenkins feel like Patty Jenkins. Again, whether you like or don't like these films, you can feel the different taste and flavor. So they could have done it, but they were chasing something, and for whatever reason, some people call it superhero fatigue, other people call it just the idea that people have given up on the DC brand, whatever, but it's an interesting dynamic that they were chasing this and they're putting it there, but they're just not getting that box office return. And it's unfortunate. It really is unfortunate, because nobody wants movies to do poorly. I don't want movies to do poorly. Even if I don't like it, I'm not going to sit there like, I wanted to do poorly, I hated it. Like, no, I want all movies to do well. But it's just it's an interesting dynamic that we're seeing happening.
Yeah, and I want to save this. Maybe this will be a discussion for us to touch on later on, because technically speaking, the DC Extended Universe is now over.
Yes.
We went starting from Man of Steel in 2013 and ending with
Mhm.
Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom in 2023. And perhaps we could have a discussion or several discussions in the future, just a retrospective, looking back at
Mhm.
everything that they've done. Maybe not breakdowns, but just everything they've done as a whole. And and then we can touch on this right now. This is something that the viewers and listeners know, that we say on the air and we say it to our friends and family off the air. All they had to do was just let Zack finish his vision.
Man, listen.
All they had to do, because by now it would have been 10 years, and whatever
Yes.
that he had planned, the reboot would have been ready to go. And now
Yes.
it just feels like, there was just so much like, okay, this is where we're at. This is where it's going to
Mhm.
end. Let's see if we can make some money and let's move on the gun now.
Yep. They absolutely had that there. Again, we understand that when it comes to studios, a lot of these decisions are made by the men and women in suits. And a lot of times they're looking only at, box office, finances, critical acclaim, and things of that nature. And sometimes, they're not looking at the big picture in terms of scale, scope, direction, and whatnot. They're just like, oh, hey, like we talk about all the times, like, why is this movie being done this way? And it's like, the people in suits are dictating the way they're supposed to be made. If they had let Zack Snyder just finish his universe, again, I believe he only had a 5-film arc. It was 5 films specifically that he wanted to touch on. By this point, it had been wrapped. We would have gone through a natural progression of a reboot, which we had read, the Flashpoint film, what it could have been, how they would have used it to reset the universe, and it would have went really smoothly. But unfortunately, due to all the hands in the pot, a lot of people who general audiences, and even people like you and myself who like to keep our finger on the pulse, we weren't even sure of the direction, and we like to stay pretty close, and we were just like, we have no idea what direction they're going. We have no idea what the Flash movie is going to do. Is the Flash ending going to matter? Is this movie going to matter? Well, they issued a new slate. They're talking about this. They're not really promoting these other movies. Are they going to play a role? Even some of the actors weren't sure if they were going to continue. So it just seemed very up in the air. And it's one of those things that, like you just mentioned, we've mentioned it many times, that if they had just let him finish, we would be done and we would be rebooting. And one thing that I think we can all agree on is that regardless of, we want critical acclaim. Like, who doesn't want critical acclaim? Like, come on. It would be great if Zack Snyder's DCEU had great critical acclaim. I would have loved it. Regardless of the fact, I still love his movies. But they want that critical acclaim so badly that they were willing to jump in line and just like make all these changes. But and this, I might be making a bold assumption. I might be completely wrong. But I think if they would have kept him on, they would still have had successful box office returns, because you're always going to have, Zach has a very loyal fan base. We've seen it. We've seen the great things that they've been able to do with raising tons of money for charity and everything else, making Zack Snyder's Justice League even happen because of their voices. So he has a loyal fan base. So all those people would have went to go see the movie. And regardless of whether you love or hate Zack Snyder's films, there always seems to people that just go watch those films just to be a part of the conversation. Even if they're like, oh, I don't like a single Zack Snyder film, they would have went to go see these movies because there's always that thought, well, like maybe this will be the one that I enjoy. So like you said, I agree with you 100%. If they had just let him finish, we'd be at a point now in the universe where we'd get in like that reboot that makes sense. You know what I mean? Where it's like, okay, like these actors are bowing out, they've had their movies, their standalones, their solos, it's time for fresh faces. We'll use the Flashpoint Paradox movie and we'll continue forward going that way. But instead, we're closing with Aquaman 2, which unfortunately is kind of like, just kind of going out with a whimper, if you will. It's just unfortunate.
Yeah, exactly. And I wanted to I saw something here. All right, let's just present this here.
Do it. Do it.
All right then. It's not letting me do it the right way I wanted to do it. I wanted to just kind of briefly go over just all the films that Zach had planned,
Mhm.
and I mean for me it's just I don't know. It's just such a bittersweet feeling, because you said this all the time. We already got what we wanted.
Yes.
We knew Zach
Yes.
wasn't coming back. We knew
Yes.
he was done, but we rallied. Hashtag release the Snyder cut, and we
Mhm.
got the Snyder cut of Justice League, and we finally got
That
it.
was the win.
And we got a version that we never thought we would ever. We got a 4-hour version. We would not have
Yeah.
seen that in the movie theater.
Nope.
We would have only gotten that. I forget the numbers.
214.
Yeah,
214.
yeah, we would have just gotten
Yep.
that, but instead he got to just give us everything, and he left it open in case they brought him back. They didn't, and that was the end of that.
Yep. Yep. And we said it. I remember after we watched the movie, we had many discussions, and we were both really optimistic and high on life at the time, where we both knew that this was very hard to achieve, and that if the universe continued, that would be incredible. But the reality was that was the victory. Like that was the win. Like that was what we were clamoring for so long, and the charity work and just constantly promoting the film and wanting to see it and show a high demand for it. People were paying for billboards and flying airplanes with banners. Like it was incredible. You know what I mean? The Snyder Cut became a pop culture thing. Like it was referenced by guys like Ryan Reynolds at shows and everything. And it was great. So when we got it, that was the win. If he came back to do more, fantastic. But the reality is we were both fully prepared that if that was going to be the end, that was going to be the end. Would we have loved to see more? Sure. But it is what it is. But yeah, like it would have been nice to see him, get to do his 5 films and call it a day. And it just wasn't in the cards for us. And I know that there's still some people that are very avid about it returning. And I'm never going to tell anybody, hey, like don't be avid about something you really want. I'm never going to say be quiet. I'm never going to do anything like that. But, I think Zach's in a good place right now. And as a fan of Zach, I'm in a good place. And I think we're in a good place. I think as fans of Zach are in a good place. And again, if he comes back, great. If not, it's okay. We got a lot of good things to look forward to.
Exactly. And I wanted to pull this up here just to do it at least once here.
Yeah.
I see this floating around sometimes, and I don't know if it's 100% accurate or not, but it's the plan that they had. So let's do
Mhm.
that. All right, we just had to pause there for a brief second, and
Yeah.
we're going to present this screenshot here that I found, and it's
Mhm.
basically as accurate as possible as the internet could find as far as what the plan would have been had Warner
Mm.
Brothers stuck to Zack's plan. So there we are. 2013, we have Man of
Wow.
Steel. 2016, Batman v Superman, and then Suicide Squad. And then 2017 would have been Wonder Woman, and then
Mhm.
Justice League. So everything happened the way it was supposed to.
Yeah.
And then we started having a few shakeups release wise, but this is what was supposed to happen. Um,
Mhm.
we had The Flash in 2018, Aquaman in 2018, and an untitled DC film in 2018. The assumption is that would have been Ben Affleck's The Batman, because
Oh.
we had that
Yeah.
little
Okay.
tease at the end of Justice League. So
Okay.
that brings us to 2019, excuse me, 2018 would have been Flash. I didn't. I meant to say Flash in
Mhm.
2018. So 2019 would have been Shazam, and then Justice League Part Two, and then there's another untitled DC film there. I'm assuming that would have been Justice League 3, but it would have gotten moved. I don't know if it would have ended on Justice League Part 3 somewhere else down
Okay.
the line. And then 2020 Cyborg, and then Green Lantern Corps. Now, I think that some things would have gotten shuffled because I think they wanted to end it on Justice League 3. I'm not sure,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
end
And
on
because
Flash. I don't know where they wanted to put Flash. So
yeah, I remember when this kind of first came out, like when they had the presentation, and it was exciting because this was at the time when superhero movies were like at their peak. So everyone was always excited to see the Marvel layout, the DC layout, and this was the first time with the DCEU where it was like bam. And obviously, you and I know that these slates get changed all the time. Even when
right,
you have like a solid plan, things are going to get shuffled and moved around. So it was always interesting because Zack's, had that 5 film plan, and then Warner Brothers obviously wanted to make other films, and he was like, okay, like, yeah, like I'm not gonna I have no say. I can't tell you can't do that. I'm gonna work on my thing, and I'll leave enough room with these characters that you can have them breathe in their own films. Like you said, I'm pretty sure we like Flash might have moved drastically and
right,
probably closed out the chapter, because especially with Zack talking about like finding out little details about Reverse Flash being responsible for all the events and leading to Flashpoint Paradox and a reboot. Um, and it was one of those projects going to end up becoming Man of Steel 2. Who
right.
knows?
That
Like,
could
who
have been
knows?
it. We don't know. There's two untitled
Yeah,
films, right?
like it could have been anything. There was a rumor, and again, never really been confirmed, that they were going to open with Man of Steel, and then the last solo film would be Man of Steel 2 to kind of open and close with Superman.
There we go.
But again, never been confirmed. It's just a rumor that people have speculated from here and there. And it's interesting to see that, because now that the DCU is ending, to see what that plan was and to see how different things shook up the moment Zack was, essentially removed from the DCEU. It's crazy to see like how much that dynamic has changed. Like, again, there was a Cyborg film there. I was so ecstatic for a Cyborg film, and it was just gone. The Green Lantern Corps, I'm a Green Lantern guy as well, gone. Flash changed so many times.
Right.
Justice League Part 2, Part 3, just gone. You know what I mean? Even though people seemed pretty eager to see those films. So like there was a lot. Again, probably the biggest heartbreak and I say it's the biggest heartbreak. Even though I would love to see Zack Snyder Justice League 2 and 3, as I mentioned, we got Zack Snyder Justice League. That's the W. That's the victory.
Right.
One of the biggest heartbreaks would have been is the fact that we are not seeing Ben Affleck's The Batman. Like that.
Yeah.
That's so
Right.
sad. And even though
So
those are untitled projects, it's kind of safe to assume that one of those would have been that film.
yeah, and I want to put that out there for those of you who don't know what we mean when we say the 5 film mark. We talk about Zack's 5 film mark. It's Man of Steel,
Mhm.
um, Batman v Superman, and then Justice League 1, 2, and 3.
Yes.
That's what we talk about, and then all those other movies would have been mixed in, and we still don't know how it would have ended. Would have it ended
Mhm.
with Green Lantern Corps? Would have ended with Justice League 3? We heard a lot of things about the Flash movie. Maybe it would have ended with Flash. We don't know, but
Yeah.
it'll definitely create a conversation that we can dive into, in the future and speculate and have a lot of fun talking about it too.
Oh yeah.
Obviously,
What,
so
what, what we're gonna end up doing? We're just gonna pitch our timeline. We're gonna pitch our timeline of
right.
what the DCEU should have been like. Here's how we would have done it, and
Yeah,
just go
so
from
we can definitely do that down the line. So let's move on here. It looks like Superman Legacy
there.
keeps getting more and more actors and characters announced.
So
Um,
many people. So many
and
people.
this isn't even the next major DC movie. We still have a couple. It was actually a Joker Folie à Deux. That's actually the next
Yes.
one. But as far as
Yes.
the first DCU movie in 2024, it's going to be Superman Legacy. And
Mhm.
I'm just reading right off of um, IMDb here.
Yeah.
We have Isabella Merced as Hawkgirl. We have
Mhm.
Skylar Gisondo as Jimmy Olsen. Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner,
Yeah.
Nicholas Holt as Lex Luthor,
Oh, yeah.
Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane, David Cornsweet as Clark Kent / Superman, Sean Gunn as Maxwell Lord, Edie Gathegi as Mr. Terrific. We have your boy Anthony Carrigan as Rex Mason slash
Mhm.
Metamorpho. Sarah Sampaio, apologies if I mispronounced that, as Eve Tessmacher,
Yep.
and Maria Gabriela De Faria as Angela Spisa slash the engineer.
Yeah.
So apologies for any mispronunciations there. Um, that's a lot of people
A
in
lot.
a
And there's going to be
solo Superman movie.
and it's so interesting because there's been a lot of back and forth chatter online about this. You have many that are arguing obviously it's too many characters, and then some people are like, what are you talking about? There's plenty of movies that have many characters in order to tell a story, and there's going to be subtle differences between each film. Like if you're I saw many people comparing, like, well, Oppenheimer had a lot of characters in it, and it's like, well, there's a big difference between that film and a standalone Superman film. And sometimes superhero movies, as we've heard over the past few years, especially when it came to Zack Snyder, a lot of people always felt that Zack Snyder's films were quote unquote bloated, that there were too many characters. Why are we introducing Wonder Woman and Batman and Superman? Where's the standalones? So, you have a lot of back and forth online where people are saying this movie feels bloated, like it's a Superman standalone. James has, repeatedly said that he feels that each character is in the movie for a purpose, to tell a story. He's also mentioned recently that he's not a big fan of overly doing cameos, which is interesting because, again, with this many characters in this movie, again, you got Green Lantern, you got Hawkgirl, you got many of the characters that you name. I can't see these characters being in the movie for a significant amount of time. So I would consider them cameos. Technically, I haven't seen the movie. I don't know the script. I'm just pulling things out of a hat right now. But it's going to be interesting because, again, he mentions, like, he's not a big fan of overly doing cameos, but we've got a lot of names in this movie, a lot. And who knows, like, is Nathan Fillion, is this the only time we see him as Green Lantern? Like, is it specifically just for this movie, or is he going to be in a new film coming out in the future about Hawkgirl? Who knows, you know what I mean? But the casting has not slowed down, and we're going to get more. I guarantee you we're going to get more names announced for this thing before, sooner rather than later.
Yeah. For me, it's just I don't maybe puzzling. I don't know if that's the right word or not.
Mhm.
It's it's almost like because Gunn is writing and directing this movie, and also
Yes.
he's the new producer of the DC studios, it's
Mhm.
almost like he wants to gamble on himself. He wants
Yeah.
to it's like, listen, if it fails, it's on me, as opposed to
Mhm.
hiring somebody else. And now it's like, okay, now I have control. I'm gonna throw as many characters as possible at you to maybe to get the audiences excited and thinking about it and
Mhm.
create a buzz so the studio won't be able to turn him away in the future. I don't know.
Yeah.
Set up future movies. Like, there's so many different reasons why you would want to jam pack a solo Superman movie with this
Mhm.
many characters. And for me, I feel like it's just to create a buzz, and
Yeah.
and that's fine. This is some show business, not show friends.
Mhm. Yep.
It's show business, and it's a business. And he knows that while he's the person that got signed on, Warner Brothers can just as easily let him go too, even after one
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah. It's
People aren't talking about that. Not as much as
yeah.
I think that they should be. There's a possibility that after Superman Legacy, Warner Brothers might let Gunn go, you know? If and what if a merger comes in, because they're Warner Brothers is trying to merge again or have a sale again, and the new company comes in. We don't know what will happen. So,
That is the big one. The idea of a possible merger. Saslov selling, like, there's a lot of variables, and I think that's why they haven't slowed down on Superman Legacy. He announced the other day that even during the writer strike, they were doing some form of production on this movie, whether it was casting and whatnot. I don't know the details, obviously, but he mentioned that, like, they've been working nonstop. And I think one of the reasons is because he doesn't have time to slow down, because there is no guarantee. With the idea of a possible merger, selling the company, a lot of changes can happen, and he needs to make sure that he shows the current studio, the current head of this studio, and whatever potential mergers in the future, that he's essentially setting up a universe that will be financially successful and critically successful, so that way he can stay on board. And that could be another reason why there's so many casting announcements for this thing, obviously to keep a buzz, to be very exciting, and to probably set up as many pieces as possible for that universe. Because when Man of Steel came out, I love that Man of Steel didn't feel like it was part of this gigantic universe. It was very self-contained, and I love that. I think that I miss that aspect of superhero films, of comic book films, is that standalone, especially with IP. And the Zack was so fun that he had like really small nods in Man of Steel. Like you see the W for Wayne on the satellite, things like that. You see LexCorp on a truck, and you're like, okay, like that's just enough. But James Gunn seems to be doubling down and be like, no, Green Lantern, Hawk Girl, this character, this character, this character, this hero, this villain. And it's just like they're working very, very, very hard. Like there's a possibility that Lex Luthor's not even the main villain for this movie.
Right.
Like he casted Lex Luthor, Nicholas Hoult, and we'll talk about that because he's a phenomenal actor. I love Nicholas Hoult. But there's a big possibility that Nicholas Hoult, Lex Luthor, isn't even the main baddie. So he may just be serving as a supporting role in the background. We don't know. But it does seem that Gunn is casting so many names, to set up pieces for spin-offs, future films,
Right.
but also to kind of like gain confidence with the studio, and again, potential mergers, because in a few months this thing could be sold. This thing could be partnered with someone else, and he's got to guarantee, like he's got to get this film out. It's got to be successful, and like you said, it's all riding on him. It's all on his name.
Right. And even though the DCEU ended, we're still going to possibly see people that we were introduced in the
Yeah.
DCEU. I don't think anybody from Justice League, any of the leads in Justice League, we will see
No.
them in those roles again. But we're looking at people probably from his Suicide Squad, the Suicide Squad, Peacemaker.
Peacemaker's a big one.
Those two, anybody that you might have seen in those two projects, strong possibility we might see them again in the DCU. But nothing is guaranteed, of course,
Yep.
So this leads us to our next point here, and it's pretty much where we move forward from here. Where are things going since the DC EU has ended, and now the DCU is coming forward, and plus where DC Studios is going to go. And I'm sorry to disappoint you folks ahead of time, but it's here we go. This is it.
Yeah.
Just three movies. Three movies with a release date. That's it.
Yeah.
That,
and things can always change, and that's what's scary. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like there's a release date now. It could bump up. It could move later. Who knows?
Right. So we have Joker Folie à Deux. That's in the Elseworlds brand. That's going to be October 4th of 2024. And I read somewhere, it's not official, but apparently the Penguin show from the Batman, the Reeveverse.
Yes. Okay.
That's supposed to come out sometime in late 2024. That's what they said anyway.
Yeah.
And then we have Superman Legacy, July 11th of 2025. We just finished speaking about that. And that's the first thing in the DCU. And then the Batman Part 2 in the Reeveverse, Elseworlds. That's October 3rd of 2025. So that's it. Everything else is just speculation. We already had a discussion about all the projects he had announced, but these are the only three projects that we have announced for now, and that's it. No major superhero releases next year. I think Joker's kind of its own thing. So that's it.
Yeah, again, it's very interesting because it's one of the arguments that people make that we've heard time and time again. Again, superhero fatigue, and other people are like, no, it's not that. But right now, we're going through a change. They're going through a leadership change, and again, he's putting all his chips on Superman Legacy, which we mentioned. The Joker sequel was already being worked on prior, so that's gonna release. And then you have Matt Reeves with the Batman universe. And I'll be completely honest with you. I was really nervous that sequel wasn't even going to happen. With all the changes and James Gunn coming in, and they had, again, No release date, no director, no cast. If you see anything like that online, guys, it's like 99% fake. But they talk about Batman Brave and the Bold. There's no release date, there's no cast. But we do know that there's currently a Batman already happening with Matt Reeves. So it's like, are they going to do, multiple Batman at once? Are they going to allow Matt Reeves to finish a trilogy first? Does James Gunn potentially want to wait that long? Again, should we even be looking that far into the future? Because again, the Batman 2 is looking for a 2025 release date. Again, a potential merger can shift that date. A potential merger can stop Brave and the Bold. A potential merger could stop the Batman 2.
I
Like
don't know.
it's just interesting where we are, that we have 3 projects lined up, and maybe the only one, the safest one, is Joker,
Right.
because that's coming out October 2024. It's filmed. It's to my knowledge. I think
Yeah.
it's completely filmed, right?
Yeah, it made $1 billion. It got Warner Brothers a couple Oscars and nominations. They're
Yeah.
not stopping that movie. That movie's gonna
No.
happen no matter what,
Yeah.
But I mean, Superman Legacy, who knows? I
Yeah.
mean,
Like
things were announced, filming hasn't started. The Batman Part 2, I don't know if filming's even started yet on that.
no, there's been, as
So
far as I know, and again, forgive me if I'm speaking incorrectly, but I don't even think there's a script for part 2 yet. I don't
right.
even think they have a script.
So the Penguin show, I believe, is wrapped. So
Yes.
that's gonna get released, hopefully,
Yeah.
and, like, just from a business perspective, if you're trying to condense, um, or, if you're trying to just make things simple, maybe, I'm not saying Warner Brothers will do this, but what if they just say, let's just put all of our eggs into the DCU? You
Mhm.
know, let's just Joker, that'll be the end of that. And sorry, Matt Reeves, it'll be very bad if they do this.
Yeah.
But sorry, Matt Reeves, whatever you've done is good enough. We're really glad you did something for us. It's gonna end after Joker,
Yeah.
or end after the Batman Part 2. Who knows?
Yeah. And it
Um,
and it's totally possible.
you know, um, we've talked about the Reevesverse, the Batman universe being Earth 2.
Mhm.
That could be interesting too, but then we run into the same issue as if this would have happened while the DCEU was around. People might have latched on to Earth 2 more than the
Yeah.
DCEU. So
Yeah.
now you have a situation where people might latch on to the Elseworlds movies more than the DCU, and you don't want that,
Yeah, and that had a huge potential of happening, because again, when Joker came out, there was a fear among certain people. It's like, well, hold on, wait a minute, like this is a Joker that's not connected to the DCEU. It's just a random, and then it did so well that you bring up a real fear that there was a potential for people to become more interested in those Elseworlds as opposed to those connective tissue films. And that's what the studio was pushing really heavily at the time, was connective tissue. Meanwhile, Joker, a complete standalone film, made over $1 billion and being rated R.
right, right. And then, um, you'd mentioned Brave and the Bold. Like, I'm not saying Warner Brothers might change their mind, and I'm not saying that if they go through this merger that the new studio might not be down for it. But us, the hardcore fans, we can accept it,
Mhm.
But general audiences, do you think they will be able to accept a Brave and the Bold and the Batman, universe at the same time?
At the
You know,
same time.
can they do that? I don't know. I know we can accept it, and a lot of
Yeah.
hardcore comic book fans can accept it too, because it happens in the comics all the time. There's
Yep.
multiple stories going on through several comic books. There's so many different forms of media, an animated show or movie might not have something to do with a live action movie, or a live action show might not have something to do with a live action movie. That's the way the
Yeah.
multiverse works. The
Yeah.
multiverse, that's just the way it works. But that would be the risk if we continue forward with this. I think it's safe to say in the future, um, the Panel Bros might not be doing as many DC talks, uh,
Yeah.
because news is always coming out, and you have many venues to go to
Mhm.
listen to the news and announcements and such. I think with us, our strong suit has been, breaking down movies
Mhm.
and also having just general discussions about movies and what we would do and our ideas and such. And I think when it comes to DC and DC Studios under Warner Brothers. I think that might be our best bet,
Yeah.
moving forward, because um, I don't want to reveal too much, but it's been a very bittersweet journey over the
Very,
for the DCEU
very,
over the past
very.
10 years. Ricardo and I were
Mm.
together when we sat down to watch Man of Steel for our very
Oh yeah.
first viewing over
Yep.
10 years ago. And we've had so many ups and downs
Yes.
over
I'm
the past.
I'm tired. I'm
Yeah,
tired.
and we got a lot of movies we were excited about. We got some movies that we were not so excited about. And once again, just to repeat it, everything culminated with actually getting to see Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Yeah.
And, that was pretty exciting too. But now it's just about closing this chapter and moving forward,
Yeah.
and all we can do is hope for the best for what's in front of us. We have Joker Folie à Deux, we have Superman Legacy, and we have the Batman Part 2. And I want to be the first to say it. I wish James Gunn all the best. I don't want him to fail.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Like
I,
especially
I
with these characters.
right.
Like
We
we
love
love these
we love
characters.
DC Comics. We love the characters in the DC
Yeah.
universe. We don't want to see them fail.
Nope.
You
Not at
know,
all.
so it's just a lot of fingers crossed. And once again, without being too negative, it's mostly about our faith in Warner Brothers.
Yeah. I'm again, I'm so tired. We're so burnt out. Like we like you said, it's been a roller coaster. It's been a lot of ups and downs. So there would be, the Warner Brothers situation, everything that happened with Justice League, which was an absolute nightmare. And that burned a lot of people out. And then people came together and it was great. And then we got new leadership. So we're hopeful and optimistic. And then that also got turned on its head. And you're like, what's happening? And then we started getting changes and cancellations. And we're like, all right, where are we going? And to the point where it's just like, I'm just tired. Like, I'm tired. Like, I don't want to call it superhero fatigue, because if you make a good superhero movie, I will enjoy it. Again, we're talking about superhero movies, and this is outside DC, but this year we got a great superhero movie in Across the Spider-Verse. So I
Right.
don't have superhero fatigue. I'm just tired of everything that's been happening with the studio. And we're talking about canceling films, like what happened with Batgirl. We're talking about movies that are like, oh, we're almost done. All right, cancel it. We're talking about movies that were intentionally turned into a cul-de-sac. Like there's just been so much, man. And it's just, it's just heavy. It's just really, really heavy. So like, that's why I make that constant joke, like, oh, the DCEU are the friends we made along the way. And we've
Right.
made a lot of friends along the way. It's been amazing to communicate with people online on social media, people that we've never actually met in person, but have full conversations with, to the point where I could say, oh, we're great mutuals or we're friends. And that happened because of our love for the DCEU and, our love for it and our disdain for what was happening at the time to some of these great directors and visionaries and whatnot. But like you said, like there's definitely going to be a change in us moving forward when it comes to talking about these projects in the studio, and if there's something to talk about, we'll talk about it. And like you said, like I want these characters to do well. Like Superman
Yeah.
is my favorite character of all time. If I was to sit here and say, I hope the next Superman movie bombs, I would be a horrible Superman fan. Like I love Superman. And again, I'll be completely honest, when it came to finding a director, James Gunn wasn't even in my brain. Like I never in a million years would have said James Gunn should do a Superman film. And I was kind of just like, I don't know. But as we mentioned, he wants to put everything on his shoulders. He wants to put everything on his shoulders, and he feels that the very first film for this universe should be something that's written by him. And, hopefully it's an amazing film. Hopefully people turn out to see it. I am a little worried that I think that people are burnt out when it comes to DC and uncertainty. So there's a big possibility that people are just kind of like, we're kind of over it. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see who turns out. And moving forward, I want to see great things. Hopefully the Batman 2 still happens. I really enjoyed the Batman. I think there's some space for it to to grow and to get better. And I hope I can see those changes in the sequel. We've talked about that in our reviews. So I am hoping that that movie actually happens. Again, we're getting Joker. I'm super excited about Joker. Never thought we'd get a sequel for that, to be completely honest with you. I thought that was a one and done. It's not like Joaquin Phoenix to sit around and say, you know what, I want to do a sequel to a movie. So the fact that he's coming back, I'm super excited about that. We got Lady Gaga as Harley Quinn. Come on, man. She wants that. She wants that Oscar. We know she
Right.
wants it. So again, there are some things to be excited for. And there's still some shaky ground. We don't know what essentially is going to happen. A lot of changes can occur. We're talking about mergers, movies being sold, change of leadership, anything can happen. But moving forward, when we talk about these things, it just might be a little different. We'll see.
Right. And just a little heads up. I know some of you might be wondering if we're ever going to do a breakdown for all of the DCEU movies, because
Whew.
we've done a few. We've only done
Mhm.
Zack's so far. We've done Man of
Yeah.
Steel,
Yeah.
Batman v Superman, and then Zack Snyder's Justice League. There's a
Mhm.
few that we would love to talk about.
Oh, for sure.
And we just might, but to just to give it away, we're probably not going to talk about all of them, because here are the panel bros. We want to keep things positive as
Positive.
possible.
Positive.
And some of the films in the DCEU did disappoint us. And
Yeah.
we don't want to influence anyone's opinions or, just add, they call it dogpiling.
Yes. Yes.
There's so much negativity out there about the DCEU. We don't want to add to it,
Yeah.
so, you
Like,
know,
trust me, there's these movies the ones that people don't like have been ragged on enough. They don't need any extra voices
right. And
to come in there and say like, "Oh, let me tell you
exactly.
why this movie's
Right. And
trash."
a lot of people don't like Man of Steel and Batman v
Mhm.
Superman. We love those movies, so we don't
I love
mind.
Man of Steel.
We don't
I
mind
love
having
it.
our own opinion separate from the crowd. But when it
Mhm.
comes to the ones where there's disappointment or negativity, we don't want to touch on those.
Yeah.
So that's why we probably more than likely won't do a breakdown for the entire DCEU. There's a few in there I would love to talk about,
Oh, for
and
sure. I would love to touch on the first Wonder Woman.
yeah.
Love to touch on the first Wonder
Yeah,
Woman.
Wonder Woman, I think would be nice to talk about. I think Aquaman, just because of how
Yeah.
special it was, and um,
Yes.
I enjoyed it, but I know you liked the first Shazam movie, so
Yes.
there's a few things that we can touch on. That if we wanted to do a breakdown, and also we talked about it today for the first time on the air. Hey, we'd love to pitch our ideas and what could have been with Zach's vision and where it would
Mhm.
have went, and that sounds fun too. But um, for right now, let's just let things breathe for a little bit. Since
Yes.
the DCEU is coming to an end, and you'll see some DC talks in the future. Just it like we said here, it just probably won't be the same way.
Yeah.
Alrighty, folks, that was the Panel Bros official fourth quarter DC Studios discussion for 2023. If
Yeah.
you could please give us a like, share, and subscribe on YouTube, we'd appreciate it. As always, those subscribes go a long way in helping our reach. And if you could please leave a comment below, uh, letting us know your thoughts concerning our discussion on the fourth quarter for DC Studios, and also maybe how you felt about the fact that the DCEU is ending and where things are going. Please let us know in the comments below. For Ricardo Segura, this is Anderson Marchak saying thank you for coming to the panel.